So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about why, especially if you're a B2B company, if you're relying on Apollo or ZoomInfo as standalone tools to do your entire outbound process, why you may not be seeing the greatest of results. And the problem with that is then the typical outbound doesn't work, cold email is dead, and what ends up happening is you stop, and your competitors who are doing it correctly or working with, say, specialists like us are going to be taking more of the market share. So the point of this video is to really outline why you should not be relying on tools like Apollo and ZoomInfo. So naturally, you're going to be thinking, well, who am I? I'm Kevin Patrick, co-founder of Astris Partners. We are a B2B growth partner, growth accelerator. We've worked with over 50 B2B companies across multiple industries. We initially did start what I would say is probably the most difficult industry when it comes to outbound, which is life science, so selling into pharmaceutical, hospitals, where cybersecurity and firewalls are very, very strong. We managed to crack it there. And then through word of mouth and, we also grow our business through cold email. So we know what works. And from that point, we've expanded. And, if we look at our results in 2024 alone, generated 8 figures in pipeline and actual closed 7 figures in new revenue through our efforts. And that's all through effective AI infused strategic emails, which basically means that we strategize, we know what, every copy, everything we write is tailored and strategic to every client partner we work with, and we infuse AI when we know it's going to make a big impact. So that's something that's very, very important. And because we only work with B2B companies, our expertise is what puts me in a good place to be able to talk about this in quite a bit of detail today. So I think the number one thing to be aware of, and I think we're all aware of this, is the concept of the jack of all trades, master of none problem. And when you look at tools like Apollo, ZoomInfo, they give you everything, right? They give you the data, they give you the sending, they give you the reporting. I know Apollo now obviously has its own CRM and sort of all of that. And don't get me wrong, I love Apollo as the person next door, right? Like, it has its place, and I do talk about that later on. But the issue is when you take a tool that is all encompassing, and you've also got to think, this whole concept of, well, I'm paying what I'm getting for. If you can get a subscription from a company like Apollo at $59 or $99, it promises to do all of these things. You've got to think, well, if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. And what normally tends to happen is that when anyone sort of positions themselves as sort of will do all of this and there's no real sort of focus or specialism, there tends to be a lot of weaknesses, which is what does happen. And the analogy here, think of it like using a Swiss Army knife versus a professional toolkit. One is convenient but basic, while the other is specialized for peak performance in each specific task. And that's very, very important to consider. So when you then look at a list of tools for infrastructure, for warm up, for the email send, for example, copywriting, for all of these different bits, then you are going to naturally get much better results. And the companies that are, excelling when it comes to outbound, which is very, very important, right? Especially for smaller B2B companies, yes, you'll probably be doing a lot of things around SEO and trying to generate inbound, and maybe you're a small team and you're using your black book of contacts. But how sustainable is that? There's only so much that you can push your referrals, etc. So you need an outbound strategy. And I feel bad because through our own efforts and, well, in addition to inbound referrals, we're speaking to anywhere between 5 to 10 founders a day, or B2B business leaders a day. And I'd say 70-80% of them are saying, yeah, we've been using Apollo and or ZoomInfo, and they're not seeing results. And then when we talk through and with some of the things I'll share today, they're mind blown. They don't believe it sometimes because they're like, well, how could that be? Like Apollo and ZoomInfo are this massive company, and why are they jack of all trades? Marshall. So just bear that in mind. So when you look at one of the biggest or one of the fundamental issues of Apollo ZoomInfo, and it still shocks me, and for those of you that might have seen on LinkedIn, there's always these memes and funny posts saying that there's no everyone they've Apollo have got this big office space, but there's no staff there, and the title is Apollo's verification team, because it really is crazy that even when you use the verified status in the filters, that we've seen 30 to 40, sometimes even 50% of contacts being invalid. Isn't that crazy? Like, why? I mean, it's wrong. Why would a major platform, a unicorn, a big platform that are charging, at enterprise level, a lot of money, why are you giving me false information? Why are you giving me wrong information? And that's the 40% invalid contact. So imagine you're sending you're exporting a list of 1,000 people. 400, 300 to 400 to 500 of those people are not right. Forget the fact that you're not able to reach them. But this 24-hour blacklist risk starts to come in, because what happens is, if you've got a new domain, a new mailbox, or maybe you're using your main domain, which you shouldn't be, and I'm going to get on that in a bit, but let's assume you're doing that. You are sending signals to the email service provider that says that this person doesn't know what they're doing. They're just blasting emails because 30, 40, 50% of them are bouncing. And this is where what does bounce rate mean? You're sending an email from one, it's going out to another email server, and it's bouncing back. That is the number one easiest indicator for any email service provider to tell you, or to tell them, that the person doesn't know what they're doing. And therefore what happens is then your mailbox can then become burnt. And then if you go back to the example of the 1,000 people and the up to 50% that you're not able to contact, by the time you try and send emails to the people that have 500 valid emails, you're never going to get through. You are never, ever, ever, ever going to get through, because your mailbox is tarnished. And on top of that, if your mailbox is tarnished, which is associated to your main domain or a domain name, then that is going to be tarnished. And then any other mailbox associated has a high chance of, and this is why deliverability in 2025 is 80% of the game. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. And that's why here we say, if you are doing anything yourself, please make sure to double, if not triple, verify. There are tools like Debounce, like BounceSpan, Million Verifier. Make sure you stick all the contacts you get from, say, someone like Apollo ZoomInfo, stick it into them, and only go for the valid emails. Okay? Same thing here. Would you build a house and shake your foundation? Obviously not. That's exactly what you're doing when you're launching campaigns with and verified data, or verified data from the likes of Apollo and ZoomInfo, because they're not verified. So please be aware of that. And then this goes back to a little bit of what we talked about before, but the problem with all of this is there is a cost. We don't always identify it or see it, but there is always a cost. And I've already mentioned some of them, so I'm not going to go through it in a bit too much detail, but please take data very, very seriously, because as I said, it's one of the easiest number one indicators to an email service provider. This person is sending unsolicited emails, even though you think you are sending to the right people, you're sending to the right company, the right titles, and yes, you might be right, but if the data is not verified and valid, then there's no other way around it. So think about that. So the other piece that I want to talk about when you look at tools like Apollo and ZoomInfo, and my personal thoughts on this is that if you are a large enterprise organization, and what I mean, maybe you've got 30, 40, 50 SDRs, 100 SDRs, you've got a big team, and you are focused on Or maybe you are looking at, you've got a very high value product, like I'm talking 6 figures is your average deal, and you are then focused on like account-based marketing outreach. Then those type of tools are great because it's all about very, very low volume, highly personalized engagement. But for majority of companies in the B2B space who maybe have one salesperson, or maybe a few, or the founder is still doing it, or the VP of business development. Great title, but we all know that you're the one who's out there trying to, you're trying to make all of these things work. A tool like an Apollo and or ZoomInfo is not going to suit. One of the key reasons for this is because Apollo, we talked about data, but if you look at the setup of being able to send emails, it will use your own sending infrastructure, and that is never a good idea. Other options is you can integrate with things like SendGrid and Mailgun, but again, they are not built for cold outbound. They are fine if you have a opt-in list, like a marketing list, and you want to send emails, but for cold, it doesn't generally work. So therefore the answer, and we know in 2025 that the answer is you need to have lots of mailboxes and send lower number of emails per mailbox. That is what's landing in the inbox. Tools like Apollo and ZoomInfo do not allow for that. Tools like Instantly, Smart Lead, they are built for that. That's why if you look at them, they all say unlimited mailboxes, unlimited mailboxes, unlimited, and they even give you the option to purchase, additional mailboxes or from different providers like Microsoft, like Google. They are much more suited for that type of infrastructure, but these guys are absolutely not. Now, alongside some of the mailbox issues that that I just talked about there, one of the other issues that sometimes these type of platforms don't allow, and this goes back to the point of jack of all trades, master of none, is that because that's not their area of specialism, they don't necessarily build specific features that's going to help with ensuring that your emails are going to land in the inbox. And that is all this is all about. This is ensuring that the message you're sending is landing into the inbox, assuming that you have done your research and you're writing a message, sending it to the right person, and this is relevant. So here are some of the top aspects that you want to be thinking about, but there are a few others that I might throw in as well. So one around sort of domain rotation. So there's quite a few things for this, but it's about ensuring that if, for example, a domain is maybe being flagged or potentially going to get blacklisted, then the technology allows to move to another domain that you've got set up. So that's what we call sort of domain rotation, or even before blacklisting, it's just good to have this sort of rotation in place, and the fact it's fully automated. So a lot of the email tools I mentioned earlier will do that. IP warming or warm-up pools. Again, Apollo, I think, had it and they took it down and they put it back again. And the point of that, again, the problem with that is that all it's doing is ramping up the sending of your emails on a very slow basis. It's not proper warm-up. Again, tools like Instantly, Smart Lead have their own warm-up pools. There are tools like, I think, Warmly is a dedicated warm-up pool. And what that is basically doing in a safe environment, it is sending emails back and forth from users, and therefore the sender reputation, which you want to do for a minimum of 2 weeks. The sender reputation is like, this is a genuine person. There is some credibility. There's a bit of history to this mailbox, to this domain, and therefore when it starts sending emails, email sending providers are more likely to accept them into their inbox. This is why aged domains, aged mailboxes do very, very well, because you just got to think of it. It's like they've got, I don't know, it's sort of like a passport, right? Imagine someone has got lots of stamps in the passport because they've traveled so much. You think that maybe that consider that person as a worldly person, but if it's the first time they're traveling, then you might not be someone that has that level of experience. You could take it. Probably not the best example, but hopefully gives you an idea of what I'm trying to say. The warm up in that instance is basically where you can send it in a trusted environment, and you can get more stamps in your passport. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Deliverability monitoring, a lot of tools now sort of show you what your warm-up score is, and if that is poor, then you can pause, you do things to optimize platform, infrastructure tools like Mail do so, have infrastructure reporting, real-time reporting, inbox placement testing apps, all of these type of things, again, are not provided by the likes of Apollo ZoomInfo because it's not what they specialized. Even things like smart sending windows or allowing to create sort of randomization, because what we're ultimately trying to do when we're doing cold outbound at scale is we are trying to mimic human behavior in an automated fashion. So rather than sending an email every 10 minutes on the dot, that's very automated. But if one email goes in 10 minutes and the next email goes in 12, the next email goes in 11, next email goes in at 8, and there's this randomization, then again, it looks more natural. So all of these type of features and aspects are what missing from some of these all-in-one solutions. So this. Well, obviously to me it's not new, but it still surprises me how many B2B companies are still sending cold emails from their main. It's a big problem. And I highly recommend, if you take anything away from today's video, please stop sending emails from your main domain. Now you might be asking why, and it's written here. When your primary domain gets flagged for spam, it doesn't just affect your outbound campaigns, it impacts all company communication, including those with existing customers, partners, colleagues, etc. That in itself should tell you enough. And again, sometimes people find that hard to understand. So let me explain it and make that even easier. When we send cold outbound emails, the inevitable nature of outbound is that you are very likely, it's all a probability, very likely to reach people that this is no longer relevant, that this is, it could be completely the wrong person because we're going on data sources, assuming that you're probably not doing the level of validation verification that say someone like a specialized partner like us would do, but let's assume. So when something like this happens, you are then going to get flagged as spam. You've got the bounce rate could cause an issue. So when all of this happens, what this is doing is the mailbox is being flagged, but so is the domain that is associated to the mailbox. And when all of this is happening, it's basically sending back to the email provider, this person is not genuine. This is a dangerous person. This is sort of like a black, and that's what it is, a blacklist, right? It is this person. We need to keep a hawk's eye on this particular email address or domain because they're sending they are ruining the experience for our customers. That's what I think people forget. People, the whole basis behind this is that when you send an email and it's not relevant, or someone says stop emailing me or whatever, what's happening is that the experience of using an email or being in your inbox is being tarnished, right? You've been on the receiving end of bad emails. I've been on the receiving end, and what it does is it ruins emails for us. Does it mean we're going to stop using it? No, but does that mean if there are more better channels to communicate that reduces that type of spam, are we going to use it? Absolutely. That's where obviously WhatsApp and Slack and these other channels become more and more popular. But that doesn't mean that if you follow the best practices and you do the right practice in terms of good messaging, one-on-one messaging, things that are really relevant based on things that are happening in the world, their company, the prospect's life, then it all of a sudden feels, tailored. And we've also been on the receiving end of good emails as well. So, I hope. And that should, give you an idea that actually cold email does work. So what's the answer to this? You want to implement, utilizing particular tools, domain rotation, but in order to do that, so when we work with a new client, we are on average setting up a minimum of 500 mailboxes for a customer. So 500 mailboxes, roughly around across 10 domains. They are split between Microsoft inboxes, Google mailboxes, private SMTP inboxes. And when you pull all of this together, you have got a really, really strong infrastructure that allows you to be able to send less emails per mailbox, and you can then focus on, making sure everything else is working and checking, higher chance of landing in the inbox. And the beauty of that is, if as you go through the process some mailboxes get burnt, very easy for you to either to save them, or you can just replace them. So yeah, domain protection, your main domain protection is very, very important to keep that in mind. So the overall, when we look at the hidden cost of poor performance, right? If we look at outbound as an overall topic, so the direct platform cost. So yeah, it's a monthly subscription fee for the all-in-one solution. So it's people always look at it and think, oh, it's so it's cheap, $59 or $99, and I can put people in and do it. As I mentioned before, I think if you're a large enterprise, or if you've got if you're doing ABM, then there is a potential place for it. But again, the argument that actually those type of tools are suited for data and building lists, that's what they're fantastic at. You can build lists, and then there are other methods to obviously scrape them and verify them, but to use it as all in one, personally, I think it's a complete waste of money. So it's not that it's free, you are paying for it, so just bear that in mind. We talked about the wasted data costs. So you're paying for data in some way, shape, or form, and if it's valid, you literally might as well throw money down the drain. You've got the reputation damage, because if your mailbox are getting burnt, again, that's more waste of money. If you're sending emails to bad data, relevant data, or then again, that's just waste of time and effort. That's a waste of company's time. That's a waste of your time. There's a waste of your employees' time. And like I said before, what ends up happening is cold email is dead. And no, it's actually very much alive. And some of our clients are absolutely killing it with cold email. And there are others that do very well from it. And we are in a, we have to be very honest and realistic, and there's a process of optimization, and that's what and a lot of this is trial and error. I'll do that in a separate video, but it's those sort of things that you need to be aware of to make sure that this whole process is something that you are considerate of. And obviously with all of this is the lost revenue from misconnections and longer sales cycles. So, and as I asked the question, would you rather pay less for something that doesn't work, or invest wisely in something that does? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And Albert Einstein says, madness is, well, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's, what is it? It's doing the same thing and expecting something different. If you've been doing outbound in a particular way, it's not working, probably means you need to try and you're either doing something fundamentally wrong, therefore means you need to try and do something else. So what I recommend is, we talked about a lot of things today, but what I recommend is that you do look at, in terms, I'm not saying Apollo ZoomInfo is bad for data, as it is. I think it's great for list building, but you want to be making sure that you are verifying the data set. So I think things like bounce ban, debounce, DE bounce, that is, million verifier, make sure you run through them. You'll also see when you do that you come across something called catch-all emails. Some of them will have like spam traps as well. So you can validate catch-alls, but my focus for those who are fairly new to this, just focus on sending to valid emails. That's the most important piece. Look at purpose-built email platforms and dedicated sequencing tools. So email platforms, or the email infrastructure. There are tools like MailDoSo is very, very powerful. But even when you look at specific sequencing tools like Instantly and Smart Lead, you have the ability to purchase Google and Microsoft inboxes inside of them. At Astris Partners, we've developed our own technology. We have our own sort of in-house infrastructure and warm-up that we do. We actually have enough clients to be able to do that at a very high quality and level, so we can maintain very high deliverability. But if you're planning to do this yourself, just say look at the individual sort of tools. And and a lot of people think, the cost is too much on. But if you look at something like Instantly, their basic plan starts at $37. It's not that expensive. MailDoSo can give you outbound specific inboxes at $99. I think they give you 32 or 36 inboxes. So it's not crazy expensive. Yeah, it's more expensive than Apollo, but if you're not getting results from Apollo, then it is very, very cheap. So just have a look at that. And then I think, in terms of when you're, again, just adding on to what we said sort of previously, make sure you update and look at the specific areas of tool, which generally tends to be around the data, the infrastructure, and then the copy or the campaign management. And then all of that needs to sort of be optimized with analytics and optimization for you to make actual decisions on what's working, what's not working. So that's where you need the different layers, and rather than looking at a one-off piece, which, as we've said, and hopefully you're convinced now, it doesn't actually work. So what are the next steps for you? I would suggest, assess your current performance, look at your data, or even if you made the conclusion that cold email is dead, ask yourself why. Have you given this a proper go? Have you worked with experts? Sometimes the shame is that, you end up working with a lead gen agency and they don't do a great job either, because most cases you're potentially someone's 50th client or 75th client that's on a retainer that they're hoping to just sort of keep going and hoping that you're not won't churn and not necessarily giving you all the time that you need and the focus and the strategy that's needed to make something happen. So don't be put off by that. Look at the information, and that goes to, I guess, the continue link. Obviously, subscribe to this channel. I'll continue to post the stuff of my value, and look at some of the other great people in this space that are talking, whether it be at a tool level or as a sort of generic, at a more holistic approach of outbound, like I am. I highly recommend that you look at research specialized tools. Please move away from all-in-one tools. It just doesn't work. Can't say that enough. But please do research and have a look at reviews, ask around. But I would hate for you to be missing out on opportunities because you haven't researched, or you're being put off by the idea because of either of cost or it's too complicated. It's really not. And obviously, if you are looking to work with a partner that has got the experience, that has got the track record, that works with a select number of partners and works in a growth partner capacity, not an agency. We don't care about the number of contacts or campaigns or verticals per month. We just want to see you grow. We just want to take care of booking the qualified calls and helping you find message market fit so that you can scale and you can focus on the closing. So if you're looking for a partner in that space, then use the link below to book a 20-minute call with me. We'll answer any questions, look at where you are, see what we can do, and then if it's of interest, we can see what the next steps are going to be. So hope this is helpful. Thank you for watching. Any questions or any comments or anything else you want to see sort of videos on, please feel free to put it in the comments below. Thank you.